let me come to Mr. Akoji now. What role do leaders, need to play in inspiring sacrifice for national development? And how can they lead by example? Because that exactly is what we are lacking now.
Okay, you see, in Nigeria we have a challenge when it comes to understanding the meaning of leadership. And that challenge is that we tend to restrict leadership only to political leadership. And that's not a complete understanding of what leadership is about. If you want to get the full benefit of a conversation on leadership, you must expand the scope. Leadership in schools, leadership in religious places, leadership in the family, leadership in the market, leadership in the motor park, leadership in civil society, leadership in government, and the entire spectrum of leadership. That's when you get the complete benefit of a conversation on leadership. But in this country, once you mention the word leadership, people's mind immediately jump to government. And so we narrow the space and reduce the benefits that we're supposed to get, from a conversation on leadership. So leadership is broader than that. At the National Orientation Agency, we understand this for a fact. And then we know also that leadership is a position when you are looking at it from the point of view of government. And most of the times, the leadership positions in government are not permanent. They are transient, And because they are transient, it means that space is created for people who were not leaders in government before to now subsequently become leaders. So if you narrow conversation on leadership just to focus on people who are in government now, you won't achieve the kind of results that you want. And I say this in the context of the fact that some of the people who are in leadership position in government today were big critiques of leaders who were there previously. But today they are there, and they are enduring the same kind of criticism, in some cases even for actions, policies, and programs that were not theirs. They didn't take. But because government is a continuum, the responsibility is inherited. So all of this goes on. Leadership, in this context that I've just described to you now, has a huge role to play in showing example. And again, I reiterate, I'm not talking about only people in government. Yes, they are part of it, but they are a small part of it. And I say small because leadership in government is transient, So if we want to achieve enduring impact on affecting positively the psyche of leaders, then we must look beyond those who are currently in office and look at also those who possibly will succeed subsequently. And the place to start from is the family. We all come from different families. So what sort of leadership examples are we showing at home? Because the leadership examples we are showing at home will fashion the understanding of our children and those that are in our care of how leaders should act in all the spaces where leaders have position, subsequently. So if you see someone whose behavior is incongruent, who is selfish, who thinks only about his or herself, and which shouldn't be an attribute of a leader. A leader means you are influencing people, you are caring for them, you are showing them the way, you are nurturing them. These are some of the expectations of a leader. So if we don't train our children from home to imbibe these core characteristics of leadership, then what do we expect when they get into position of any kind? So there's challenge, and Reverend Hyatt alluded to that. The challenge of leadership, you would find it in every space that has leadership position. In our churches and mosques, believe you me, there's leadership challenge. In our families, some fathers abdicate the responsibilities of a father, and they are hardly ever there to show the way, to lead from the front and to guide the morals and the values, that their children imbibe. So these children grow up without those morals, without those values, and they become terrorists, they become armed robbers, they become yahoo, and they become all of that. There was a time in our country, you will agree with me, and the period that I grew up in, I saw my father ride a bicycle as a government staff, and we're excited about it. He would carry my mother on the on the bicycle, and as he grew through the ranks, through hard work and performance, he came to a stage where he could buy a motorcycle. I still have recollections of how we celebrated that motorcycle when it came, Honda 90, when it came home. And then he grew and became a senior staff and bought a Peugeot 404. My God, I could not sleep. I would go out several times and look at it, And then he grew in rank again and bought a 504. And that modeled our thinking then, that life is in stages, and that as you pass through those stages, you garner experience and you mature. Today, our children in primary school want to drive Bugatti. They don't want, the end justifies the means. They don't want to know about processes, So this is where we are. If we are going to have good leaders, please let's not wait until they have entered positions in government. Let's begin to nurture them from our homes. Some of the children we are raising in our various homes today will be tomorrow's governors, tomorrow's senators, tomorrow's commissioners, tomorrow's ministers and everything. And it is what we have put in them from now that they will manifest when they get to that position. So the most critical element in leadership is the family. What kind of leadership are we providing at home for our children?